Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today is going to be a little bit of a different video. I am answering 7 questions in 7 minutes, and this challenge was started by Xavier Martinez from the YouTube channel Expressions of Grace Bonsai. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. Question number 1 for today is, who are you? Well, I'm Nigel Saunders. That's who I am. I am 6 foot tall. I began life, I was born in Switzerland, Winterthur, Switzerland, in 1962. So that makes me 60 years old this year. We lived in the UK for a while, in Wales. And then at age 5, we came to Canada. I went to the Expo 67, and I've been living here ever since. Both of my parents were Australian. My father was from Perth and my mom from Rockhampton, and I am an Australian citizen, even though I've never been to Australia. 9 years ago, I started my small, humble YouTube channel, and it has just kind of steadily grown in size ever since. There's never been this dramatic rise in subscribers or anything. It's just been kind of a linear line, just kind of grows slowly and steadily over almost the last 10 years. So yeah, I never expected my channel to get as large as it is. It's amazing, and thank you everyone for watching. Question number 2, what country or region are you from? I live in southwestern Ontario, Canada. It's a zone 5B, so it gets pretty cold in winter and quite warm in summer. In winter, we'll go down to typically minus 22, 24 degrees Celsius. In the summer, it can get up to 34, maybe even 36 degrees Celsius on a really hot day. I live kind of surrounded by the Great Lakes, and so I get a lot of snow here in winter, and in the summer, it's quite humid. Question number 3, what was my very first bonsai? I still have my first bonsai. It was a tree that just sprouted in a pot. And so it's grown from seed, and it's my Ficus microcarpa here. So let me just move the kapok out of the way. Here it is here. This was my very first bonsai. Just grew all by itself, and it's what got me into bonsai, because I just liked the look of the little seedling. It looked like a little tree, and I've been growing it ever since. So it's starting to get an interesting buttressed root base on it. Some big, thick kind of primary branches, secondary branches, and it slowly keeps getting better. So this is 30 years old now from a seed. So that's my first bonsai. It got me interested in bonsai. So it's kind of a special tree to me. Question number 4, what is your favorite bonsai and why? This is a tough question to answer because, I like all my bonsais kind of equally, but I think to answer this question, I've got to pick a tree that kind of represents me. And a lot of my bonsai are kind of unusual, something I've grown a long time. It kind of represents my clip and grow philosophy. I think it has to be something a little unusual too, something not normally seen in the bonsai world. So I'm kind of looking for those features in my favorite tree. Let's go around on the benches and have a look at some of the runner-ups, and then I'll try and narrow it down to one tree if I can. I'm back in the greenhouse here. So my very first bonsai is one of my favorite trees, just because it's so special to me. I do like my Ficus religiosa over here too. I've been developing that a long time, and it's nowhere close to being kind of a finished bonsai or structurally sound bonsai, but I enjoy it a lot. Over here is another one of my favorites, my Schefflera bonsai. I really like this planting, and it gets better every year. I'm really happy with this one. Over here I have my root over rock ficus. I really like that one too. I've got Ficus Fancy here, which I also really like. Oh, there's so many of them, I guess. My aloe bonsai here is very unusual, and obviously I like that one a lot too. I really like my ginseng ficus, my ficus microcarpa here. I think it's getting mature and developing nicely. There's so many that I really like. I really like my bog forest here. This is a fairly new planting. I think this one has the potential to be something really awesome in the future as I grow these trees a little taller, keep them narrow and slim, pencil thin like the trees from up north. I think that's going to be a really cool bonsai and unique in the future. I like all my forests, my large forests, my cedar forests. I just like them. I like my Scots pine root over rock here. My adenium forest is cool. Ficus, Frankenficus here. I think it's going to be a spectacular tree in the future once I develop the canopy more. I really, really like my yucca forest here. Very unique. Very bonsai zone-ish. My sarissa here that I've been developing for many, many, many years is also one of my favorites, and maybe my favorite, I'm not sure. I have lots of trees on the go that have the potential to be spectacular trees in the future. They just need years of development. So it's hard to pick one. I think if I had to pick one, I like my Norway maple here too. I think if I had to pick one, it would probably be my sarissa. So I think it has kind of a unique style, this Pyrenees style. I've been developing it a lot of years. It's starting to get mature, get good structure to it. I've got my old lemon tree there. My old Austrian pine, my bird's nest spruce here. My nightshade bonsai is really cool. It's getting all kinds of berries on it. Flowers. Yeah, it's hard to pick one. My 60th birthday Scots pine is also got to be one of my favorite trees. I don't have a lot of emotional attachment to this tree yet because I haven't done a lot of work on it yet. It's just been some preliminary work, trying to get the root system going, a little bit of branch sorting out, but definitely I think it has the potential of becoming one of my better bonsai show trees in the future. Yeah, so it's right up there, this one for sure. My sarissa is definitely one of my favorite trees, and I don't know if I can really pick one favorite. I think if I had to pick one tree, if I could only keep one tree of my entire collection, it would have to be my very first ficus because I'm emotionally attached to it. I grew it from a seed, and it's just starting to mature. And they're a fairly easy species to keep alive, whereas the sarissa, I'm always nervous about it dying because I've had several cuttings of it get kind of mature and then they die off. They get some kind of fungal disease or something. So I'm always worried about my large one. I think I've overcome my problems with it by keeping it cool in the winter, giving it that dormant rest period, and then it gets really vigorous in spring and summer. So I think that's the secret, the sarissa, plus very careful watering with rainwater. So I hope I can keep it alive, but I'd be nervous if I picked that as my one tree to keep. It may not be around in a few years, you never know. So the ficus is a pretty stable tree. So I think I would pick my very first ficus as my favorite tree. Question number 5. What is your worst tree and why? And now, to say it's your worst tree, there's several ways you can look at it. Maybe your most undeveloped tree, so maybe a tree that's just started from seed this year could be your worst tree. But a tree that started from seed has all the potential in the world. So I think when I talk about worst tree, it's got to be sort of an established tree that has maybe a really awkward structure to it, or major defects that you just don't know what to do with it. Something that is a very difficult subject to improve in the future. Something that it would take a lot of work and a lot of maybe imagination and patience to develop this into anything that would resemble a bonsai in the future. So let's have a look at some of the runner-ups for that. Through the doors of the greenhouse here, straight ahead is my Ficus lyrata, a tree with ridiculously large leaves for a bonsai. I wouldn't say this is one of my worst trees, but I would say it's one of the worst species for bonsai. I'm going to do what I can with it. I think it has potential to be a reasonable bonsai in the future. I think I've just got to keep growing the branches, getting more and more branching, develop the roots and the trunk. Maybe has some potential in the future, but definitely nothing close to a showable tree, maybe in my lifetime. Maybe a good candidate for my worst bonsai tree is actually one that's pretty impressive. It's this European buckthorn. A very difficult species to grow as a bonsai. I'm sure I'll be totally frustrated with this tree 10 years from now. This tree has a little bit of inverse taper, but it's not too bad. The branches, you can see there was a mature branch here. It just died off. It happens on these, that branches, instead of growing and making the branches mature, they just die back and you get a new sprout from the trunk in the same location. It's like, oh, I got to start over again. So a very difficult tree to style, and I think it'll be a very frustrating tree for me. So yeah, not the worst looking tree, but probably one of the worst species to try and develop, as far as I know anyway. I've had limited practical experience with them. From what experience I've had with them, it's been very frustrating. One of the candidates for my worst bonsai, I've already killed it. It was my pencil cactus. It just didn't seem to do what I wanted it to do, and I disliked it. It just grew long and kind of bushy every year, and it didn't look like a miniature tree at all. I cut it back hard, trying to experiment, and it didn't recover. So I wasn't sad to see that one go, but that would definitely be one of my worst bonsai. I just had no love for that pencil cactus, that's for sure. Over here, I think this might be the tree, my worst bonsai. This is a red maple. It was growing in the front yard, and I was keeping my eye on it. I was going to let it thicken up a bit in the ground and then dig it up and make it into a bonsai. And I forgot about it, and I looked at it about 5 years later, and it was this huge, tall tree, twice the height of me. And I thought, oh, I've left it too late. It's too bad. And so I chopped it off. It died back. Chopped it off again. It died back again. Now it seems stable. I'm developing this coarse root system, hopefully into something nice looking someday. This summer we had some good heat, and I was away for the afternoon, and when I came back, all the leaves were scorched and crumpled and burned. So you can see here what they all look like. A lot of them fell off, so it looks pretty bare up top now. Just notice there's a scale insect down there. So right now, it's probably one of my ugliest trees. It has no taper. Its branch structure is pretty weird. It's kind of half naked. However, you know, given enough time and work and patience, I'm sure someday this will be quite a nice tree. I think one of my least favorite trees is this Pinus artificialis. It seems no matter what I do, I can't get it to grow. It just sort of sits there dormant. It doesn't perish. It doesn't thrive. It just sits there dormant. So one of my least favorite trees. This tree also has a very artificial look to it. It doesn't really look like a real tree. Question number 6, how did I start into bonsai and why? I started into bonsai because that little seed grew in a poinsettia pot at work. It was totally by accident. It just started growing in the soil. It started growing about this high, and it started to get a little woody trunk on it, and I thought, that kind of looks like a miniature tree. It kind of looked cool. And I thought, well, I'll give it its own pot. And I kind of roughly transplanted it into a new pot, and it grew and it grew and it grew, And it started to look even more and more tree-like, and I thought, wow, I really like that. And it got to the point, it was in my window at work, and it started to get kind of almost too high. It was starting to outgrow the window. So I thought, well, I've got to prune it. And I went to a bookstore, and I was looking around at books on pruning, and they had a bonsai section. And when I saw those bonsai books, I started looking through them, and oh my goodness, I just fell in love with the hobby. I never knew bonsai was a thing until I saw those books. And I've always liked, models and miniatures. When I was growing up, I did, special effects, making Super 8 movies of, models and action. And I just love model making and that. And I think bonsai is sort of an extension of my fascination for miniatures. And I just love the hobby because, you start with a little seedling, which is, nothing, and that you can develop something so fantastic out of it. And unlike a model, you don't just put it on a shelf and it collects dust. A bonsai keeps evolving and growing and requires your input into the model or the bonsai all the time. And you get to know the tree, and you develop this caretaker-tree relationship that's kind of special in the world of gardening. Question number 7 is kind of a two-part question. The first one is, what is the most you've ever paid money-wise for a tree? I don't think it means, giving an arm and a leg to get a tree. I think it means money. So let's have a look around on the benches, and I'll show you some of my more expensive trees. These are all free cuttings. The buildings cost a little bit of money, but the cuttings were free. Over here, that's a cutting. This is a cheap plant. Most of these are cuttings. I think they're all from seed or free. Yeah. Nothing purchased here. Oh, maybe the bougainvillea here was purchased. That was $14.99. I remember that. On this bench, those are all cuttings. They're all cuttings. Matt gave me that planting. In the greenhouse here, this section, all free seedlings that were given to me, or seedlings I've developed or am developing. My ficus microcarpa here, that was from a seed that cost me nothing. My ficus religiosa here, I bought a nursery pot, and it had about 5 ficus religiosa growing in it. This was the largest one, but it too was developed from nursery stock young. It was, very small when I got it. So very inexpensive, that one. Maybe $15. My Schefflera here, that was a clump from a big box store. That was really cheap too. I think that was maybe $10. This one's a cutting I grew from one of my other trees. These were in pots about this size when I got them. My ficus microcarpus, and they were very cheap. I think they were $7 or $8 a piece. This one and my ficus plain over here were bought together. This one was the $50 challenge. That's maybe in the running for the most expensive tree pot combination. My bougainvillea was very cheap. It was only $15 at the most. My aloe, I think that was $7. Cuttings that were free. This one, my ficus benjamina, it was very cheap. It was a house plant. I think it was maybe $10. My ficus here, the Ficus bengalensis, that was a little more expensive. I think that was maybe $25, somewhere around there. My pomegranate, that was only $12. These are all cuttings. My Schefflera here, that was a house plant that turned into a bonsai, or it's in the process of turning into a bonsai. Cost me almost nothing. My acacia, those were seeds. They cost me nothing. They were given to me. My Natal ficus here was The price is on it, $25. My Premna here, that was one of my more expensive ones. I think that was around $50. Those were all cheap. Baobabs were from seeds. All my citrus trees here are from seeds. My monkey ear trees are from seeds. So nothing expensive in here. I think the most expensive one so far is probably the Premna down there at around $50. So let's check the other benches now. This tree, my birthday tree, is probably the most expensive tree I have in my entire collection, but I didn't pay anything for it. But all you wonderful viewers out there help contribute to this tree, and it was given to me as a birthday present. So it's probably the most expensive actual tree I have in my collection, and I don't even know the price of it. I think I don't know what they paid for it. I have no idea. I didn't even ask Ray a price on it because I was hoping it was around $300 or $400, and they said no, that's not even close. So I don't know what it cost, but it's probably the most expensive tree I have in my collection. All the other trees are from seeds. Collected some of them collected from the front garden. Over here, my lemon trees from seed. There's a few trees here that were given to me when I did the workshops at Tropical Expressions. They're worth, some of them are worth around $100. So those are kind of expensive. This was, very cheap. That was from Chris Hendry's. I think that was maybe $35. This was a nursery stock. Austrian pine was nursery stock. That was on sale. It was really cheap. Tropical Expressions tree here. Yeah, I don't know what that was worth. Maybe $50 or something. Maybe more. All these are dug up or from seeds. Connor gave me that one. Zin gave me the lychee tree. That was collected. In the greenhouse here, I don't think there's anything expensive in here. They're mostly seedlings, cuttings, seedlings. Dug up from my front garden as from a cutting. From a seed. Yeah, there's nothing very expensive in here at all. All just very, started from very small nursery stock that was, just a few dollars. On the benches out here, these native trees, all these black maples and blue ash, I think they were like $12 or $15 each. A lot of these are just dug up from the front garden or started from seeds. Yeah, there's nothing expensive here at all. All these larch and black spruce here in my bog forest, they were given to me by Jonathan, and he bought like a mass purchase of these small seedlings. So they weren't very expensive. Each, I think they were maybe $7 to $10 each. These are all collected. The larch, the thujas, they're all collected or from seed. All these are from seed. My crown of thorns, very, very inexpensive nursery stock. Collected. The original Portulacaria afra I have here. It's very cheap. A cutting bought from, I don't know if it was from a nursery or, I think it was off a club member. Small cutting. And the rest are all cuttings from it. The adeniums, they were quite reasonable. The biggest one here, I think, was, what was it? I'm thinking like $25, and the little ones were $12 to $14. They were quite inexpensive. This tree I bought from Connor, the twisty thuja. This is probably one of my more expensive trees. Again, it wasn't all that much because, I don't know, I don't think I have any really expensive trees in my whole collection. This was just nursery stock. It's just old, very inexpensive. I think I paid like $23 for it or something. The yuccas I just found at the side of the road and thrown out for compost, and I potted those up.
My hibiscus that was given to me by my mother. This was from Jarhead Bonsai, a gift. The apple tree was dug up from my sister's yard. My sarissa was from a small cutting. That was one of the first trees I ever bought, and I bought the little cutting off Eldon Lease, who is a founding member of the KW Bonsai Society, and I think I paid $7 for it. It was just a little tiny cutting. My ponytail palm here, it was just a little thing when I got it. It's getting really big now. It was really cheap. This was collected. That's from seeds from the garden. Just collected from the backyard, that one. Cotoneaster, I bought that in spring. It was really cheap on sale. Nothing expensive. Asparagus fern was just a couple of dollars. Gifts. Black pine was a gift. Yeah, I don't see anything in my collection that's very expensive at all.
Looking around my collection, I don't really have any super expensive trees. My birthday present was probably the most valuable tree I have in the collection. And the rest are all kind of either collected, nursery stocks, grown from small things. Yeah, so not a lot of money outlay on the trees. I think the money eventually will come into getting nice pots for them all, but that's part of bonsai. The second half of question number 7 is, what species of tree do I like working on the most and why? I think ficus has to be right up there. I think I'm drawn towards those banyan trees with the big umbrella canopies, the aerial roots, that kind of tropical rainforest look. It just really appeals to me. I love those kind of trees, and I love ficus working on them because they respond to all the techniques. They require a lot of techniques to keep them looking really, really nice and to develop them into the future. And I love the look of the ficus. I think they're fantastic. I do like working on all the other trees. I would hate to work on just one species of tree. I think variety, keeps the hobby really interesting, challenging. Chifleras, I love chifleras again for the same reasons. They drop aerial roots, they get that rainforest look. They're inexpensive to buy, which is another plus, so you can experiment around on them, develop your techniques and practice on them, and eventually you'll get a super looking tree. Let's see if there's any runner-ups for my favorite type of tree to work on. Well, these are all ficus and chiflera. I've mentioned those. Rubber trees. Premna, I think, will become a favorite tree in the future. They're a classic tropical bonsai. They get a nice rough trunk on them. They get super, super small leaves when grown as a bonsai. So even though, this is my first year with a Premna, I think that'll become a good species for the future. Not much else in here. I've got my citrus trees. They're a difficult tree as a bonsai. I think maybe some of the thuja or eastern white cedars are some of my favorite trees. They seem to respond really well to bonsai techniques. They're robust. They can survive the Canadian winters here. Even if you leave them out on the bench, the chances are they'll be alive in spring. They're very hardy. I like all deciduous species, like my Osage oranges, elms. They're all really nice. My lime trees, they're all nice. I like pines, spruce pines, junipers. They're all nice. I like native trees. I do also like succulents. Jades, Portula, Caryophyras. I think succulents are cool. I don't know. I like every tree. I'm also liking some of the more unusual trees that I've started recently. Cherry trees, some of the natives. My English oaks I really like. Yeah, I don't know. I like every tree. They're all my favorite species. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy the hobby so much. Back to the first question. Who am I? Well, I'm Nigel Saunders, and I love the hobby of bonsai. I look forward to waking up every day, coming out, checking up on my trees, watering them, taking care of them. I really enjoy bonsai as a hobby. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.